Well, since we did this today, you always, as an athletic director, you always kind of have your eyes open. If you see somebody that impresses you, you kind of either put that in your memory box or write it down and just a lot of people say, well, do you have a short list? No, we don't. But we always observe people who do a good job, and perhaps along down the road, a young assistant that maybe was here years ago or somebody you bumped into that we'll go back and look at some of those names and some of those people first. It's amazing in the short period of time that we've had here how many applications have already come through via email. So there's no shortage of interest in this job.
Can you talk about some of the reasonings to part ways with JC?
Well, I would say that our season was, I had higher expectations for this season. I thought even though we were young that we would get better as the year went along. I really had high hopes after the Montana State game that might have been a turnaround game. We seemed to just never find a way to keep it together long enough. And then when we entered I thought we played fairly well at Sam Houston, and I felt like that perhaps we could push through and have a good November, and it just didn't quite work out that way. So, this is a highly competitive league. This is a sport that the university expects great things from. It's a sport that receives the bulk of our resources, and there are high expectations. And we're in a league that has 3 representatives in the FCS championship right now. So there's pressure there as well. So I just felt like that the direction that we needed to take was to try to find a way to get better, and I just didn't have confidence that the direction we were taking was what we needed to do.
All right, can you, just for my purposes, are you calling it a firing, a dismissal? How are you wording things?
Well, it's however you want to term it. I think some people think it's a firing. Basically is we just chose to part ways.
How much of the struggles defensively, giving up those many points, how much of that will be a focus in your next head coaching to look forward in that?
Well, obviously, we've got to get better defensively. That's going to be one of the things that we'll look at, whether or not the coach has a defensive background or an offensive background. I mean, we're going to get the best coach that we can find. Special teams, it's an overall. But remember, head coaches are really, the good ones are known for a couple of things. They all have background in X's and O's, but the real good head coaches that I've observed in my life have been those that can motivate and organize. And that'd be something that's going to be high on my list.
The struggles down the stretch, how much stock of that do you put into coaching, and how much of it is talent-based? Do you feel that you have the athletes here already to compete at a high level?
Well, you get down that late in the year, one of the things you have to deal with is injuries. That has a lot to do with it. The other thing is that I would say that youth, injuries, those things like that. But once you get 10 games under your belt, I don't think youth has much of an issue as it is maybe an injury or just motivation, not knowing how to line up right, those kind of things. That gets pretty frustrating.
You mentioned the motivation factor and stuff. What are some of the ideal characteristics you would want in your next head coach?
Well, I think that someone who can get out in the community and really sell the program to the community, not only Nacogdoches but the Lufkin, to be seen around campus, active with campus organizations, drumming up support through that. Somebody that is visible, somebody that people can walk up to and visit, talk about SFA football, encourage people to watch SFA football, encourage people to come out and support the program. But you got to be in the community to do that, and that's one of the motivational things I look at. Is not only are you motivating a team, but you're also motivating a community and a fan base.
It wasn't too long ago you were competing, as you mentioned, for the Southland Conference Championship. How eager is this program to get back to that stage?
I think that's our number one goal. I'm on that committee, and I got back from Indianapolis yesterday where we picked 24 teams to go to the tournament. I can't tell you that other than having a great time working with those really dedicated athletic directors that I wasn't jealous sitting in that room looking at 3 other teams in our league in the playoffs, and we're here at the house. There's nothing like Thanksgiving getting ready for a playoff game. You get that kind of feeling. And even though it's hard in FCS because you do have ups and downs and your numbers aren't quite like they are in the BCS level, still getting to that playoff and being able to count on those playoffs at least 3, 4, 5 times a decade, that's something we'd like to be able to do.
How much of this decision to part ways with JC, what's the effect on the rest of the coaching staff?
Well, obviously, anytime you change the head coach, you also pretty much change your assistant staff. That's the hardest thing, is to walk in a room where you've got 10 assistant coaches and telling them they may or may not have a job when the new man gets here. Here at our university, we keep them here until we get a new head coach, and then he makes that decision. I do guarantee them a quality interview and an opportunity to stay here if they'd like, but they have to interview with the head coach.
So, Robert, how Stephen F. always pretty much goes to former assistant somewhere and hires those kind of guys. Now, Sam Houston hired a guy that was a D2 coach, and Willie Fritz, and Southeastern hired a head coach from Delta who's done really well. Are y'all's, I know you got taking a lot of applicants, but is a proven winner kind of fit in line?
I think that if I could have any kind of a person for this job, obviously you'd like to have somebody who's been a head coach before. That really helps. A head coach that's had success before is a real important thing. But you have to understand, since the last time we hired a head coach, that the pay disparity in college football is really ballooned, because you've got the BCS schools and those FCS or the other non-BCS schools where they've got assistant coaches that the lowest man on the totem pole probably makes $150,000 to $200,000. So you're paying coordinators at that level $500,000 to $600,000, $700,000. Even at the BCS level, you're getting coordinators that you're paying $1 million to. Well, that pretty much puts them out of your market, because at this level, there's nobody making that kind of money. So you either have to look at FCS or D2 people, primarily just for the economics of it, because there are very few people that I know at the BCS level that are going to give up $400,000 jobs to come be a head coach. So it'd be an extraordinary person that would be willing to give that up, especially with families and everything, all the other obligations you have. So our primary probably see to start would be FCS or very successful D2 head coaches.
I guess the last head coach, the last coach here who was a coach was Hess.
Was a head coach? Yeah, because he was a college head coach, yeah. Pierce had been a head coach, but he was a high school head coach. Right. They're hard to find. I mean, if you're a successful head coach somewhere, it's pretty difficult to leave one place for another unless you can buy them. And obviously, we're not going to buy anybody like that. I mean, we're not going to we can't throw $500,000, $1 million at somebody.
As far as style of play is concerned, is that in consideration of who you bring in to not make a drastic change, or does that not play a factor at all?
Well, unless you're North Dakota State and FCS, you're pretty much going to spread it out and do something. I don't think there's another team in the country that's in the playoffs that takes a snap under center. I think everybody is back there waiting for the snap some way or the other. You line up and spread it out. So, it wouldn't take, we were running the ball more than we ever ran this year. So we've altered our offense too. But remember, we're going to have 7 offensive starters, 7 defensive starters back next year. We've got a nucleus of about 60 returners. So we've got a strong junior, senior, sophomore class next year that should be able to compete for the conference championship. I mean, we got some older kids.
So you feel like the new coach coming in, whoever it is, obviously has a lot of pieces to work with?
I think, we never timed it this way, but if you look at what's returning, we've got almost 60. I think we do have 60 returners coming back in the spring, which you normally only have about 45 to 50. So we're going to go through a period of time where we're not going to be able to recruit. So if you're looking at a time that you only have to replace a few kids, then this might be a good time to do it. I mean, we didn't time it that way. It's just the kind of way it happened.
Is this a rebuild or is this a tweak?
I think this is a tweak.
He's thought the head guy in charge wasn't getting things done enough. So bringing another guy with the same players and same sort of schedule and see what he can do.
You could say that. We have 7 home games next year. We have new teams coming into the conference. We have some opportunities next year just because of the way the schedule falls to be better.
JC had mentioned towards the end of the year that the players, he was always proud of how hard they played and they didn't quit. Did you see some of those same things?
I did. I was really, you've got to be, there's a level of self-motivation and pride to play as hard as we played throughout every ball game. I don't remember a game that we dogged it or took time off. We really played hard. That's something that I've got to admire about these kids. That's why I'm optimistic about next year. We can put those mistakes aside. We could be pretty good.
Why do you think the same mistakes were being made late in the season? Can you speak on that?
I'm not a coach. I've never coached, never claimed to be one. I scratch my head just like you do.
Was it frustrating, I guess?
Well,
seeing the same thing?
if you're a fan or you watch it, it does bring a level of frustration. I just imagine what the players feel like.
Is it far off? I know you said you're not a coach, but from your naked eye, does it look far off? Do you feel like did this one change that you're going to make and then maybe the rest that he changes coaching staff-wise, is it far off?
I have to hand it to, in a lot of ways, we're able to get good players here. We've done a good job recruiting. Why we're not winning with this group, again, I'm not a coach, but I wonder. With a new person here with a different attitude on things, maybe they can get this thing going. Certainly going to try to find that right person. I really think there's enough talent returning next year to have a say in the league. So the cupboard isn't bare. Let's put it that way.